Good evening, y'all. Sorry I look a little bit like crap, but welcome to another episode of Spilling Tea. I'm your host, Tiffany Daniels. We are going back to that horrible world known as the JRC, but as always, first, the disclaimers. The reason why I look like crap, folks, is today the OCD side of my diagnosis was OCD. I decided today was the day to play, you know, kitchen pantry Tetris and get a bunch of stuff that has been sitting on the dining table that didn't need to be on the dining table put back into space, getting rid of like the open boxes that was really cluttering up in my cabinets and not giving me the space to put up medicine. And yeah, it's kind of been an all day project, so my apologies for taking so long today, but in my defense, it looks so much better. Alright, if you're unfamiliar with the Stop the Shocks campaign or the campaign against the troubled teen industry, you're going to find all the pertinent links right there in the description box. Please, in particular, take note of the article written by Neuroclastic, a small non-for-profit started by autistics for autistics. In it, they interviewed over 800 ABA professionals in regards to the JRC's so-called behavior modification program. The Judge Rotenberg Educational Center doesn't want you to read that article so much, they threatened Neuroclastic with a defamation lawsuit if they did not remove it from the website. Neuroclastic refused. You know the drill. Please read the article, share on all your social media. Also included is Neuroclastic's public statement regards to the defamation lawsuit threat, as well as a link to their GoFundMe. We are crowdfunding just in case the JRC ever does actually see through with their threat. Now, through all the trigger warnings, folks, when we discuss places like the Judge Rotenberg Educational Center or Agape Boarding School for Boys, you're going to hear vivid descriptions of and catch clips or surveillance footage of people with mental health issues and disabled people being tortured and abused. If you got a young child present, please utilize the headphones. Also, folks, when talking about places like the Judge Rotenberg Center or Agape Boarding School, obviously, there's going to be some profanity, and we do speak on dark subjects. If your kid is 16 and younger and watching, parental supervision is advised. Also, when we are dealing with JRC, we are talking about the capital of planet Earth in regards to gaslighting, lies, misdirection, and misinformation. And I'm afraid that's just for starters. We are once again going into one of the JRC's favorite things when they want to gaslight us all to hell, which means there's going to be another story that they have painted as bleak as humanly possible in order to use it as a shock value to say, well, if they're so out of control, maybe the JRC knows best. Problem with that is, it's bullshit. And it's bad for you, as George Carlin used to say. Because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter how bleak you paint a situation. The fact that there is millions, literally millions of autistics all over the globe, those autistics who are receiving quote unquote alternative services, or as the rest of us here in the planet know it as, actual regular treatment programs, and what the actual standard in regards to treatment programs are, they're lying out their ass. But as always, they're going to paint that bleak picture. They're going to throw things in that aren't even remotely relevant. It's all an effort to say you clearly don't know how to deal with kids like this, so you must leave them to us. But again, folks, bare facts, not even getting emotional about it, the math isn't mathing. Because why is it I know for a fact that there are autistics all over the world that are, quote unquote, as severe as those kids at the JRC who have not been hooked up to human shock collars that have had, granted, not immediate, but as time goes by, they have more and more progress and continue to improve over time. It's because the JRC knows it's a bullshit argument. That's why they go for shock value. Because if you're just looking at straight facts, it looks ridiculous. Because it is ridiculous and batshit insane. So, anyways, just be aware of that. We're going to go over the first paragraph real quick. I do intend to make it short because I'm like starving to death here. And I've got this awesome white sharp cheddar and bacon macaroni and cheese that is calling my name. So, let's go through the paragraph. RAG's violent SIB and AB was so dangerous and frequent that prior to admission to JRC, his parents had to call EMTs to their home on numerous occasions to help control RAG. So straight out the gate, we're not going to be going into any form of diagnosis. We're not going to go into any form of whether or not a full functional behavioral assessment has been done. We're not going to give any type, even vaguely, of actual medical history here. We're just going to go straight and say this autistic kid is psychopathic and you have to leave him to us. Cute, JRC. Real cute. It's bullshit, but you tried. Bless your little evil sadistic hearts. They're going straight to this, alright? Let's continue to read the paragraph and then I'm going to dissect why it's bullshit. Shall we? Starting to become the usual modes of the video, isn't it? RAG would also physically attack his father in the car while his father was driving, resulting in police involvement on more than one occasion. Okay, we've got questions, JRC. The first one would be, why, in regards to this case, are you leading automatically with that? You are giving us none of the background medical history on this student that you are lambasting to hell and demonizing. You are not telling us whether there has been any form whatso goddamn ever of interventions that have been tried in regards to this student. You are literally leading off with trying to paint this poor kid as a complete psychopath. Congratulations, you evil bastards. But you know what? Still not buying it. Because, again, for the billionth time, I've worked in the goddamn field. Another reason is I was that goddamn child. So I would at least like to think to myself that I have at least a bit of authority on this particular subject. Okay? I was about 5. I can't remember exactly what we were doing. It was out when we lived out in Marshall, Missouri years ago. And we had a little bit of woods in the back. And I think my dad was taking my brother sledding. And yeah, there was his old kind of green blue mint like old car that I released the brake on intentionally and got the car moving. Okay? Screaming wee, while those two poor bastards had the whole ass to catch me. That was the less violent ones. Okay? There were instances, especially when I was younger, of me trying to constantly to open the door while other people were driving. Don't ask me why, because to this day I can't tell you. I just remember distinctly doing it. Okay? I do. I remember very distinctly. Let's see here. I would torch, catapult, rip apart, melt, cut off the hair of pretty much every single Barbie doll I was ever given. I put holes in walls. I would throw things, in particular and most notoriously, the shoving over and throwing the drawers of hard, solid oak dressers. Yeah, I was that kid. I was that kid. But you know what? I was not forcibly put on a human shock collar. And not a single person in my life, including my parents, thought it was going to be a good idea to haul my ass off to a fucking insane institution that calls itself a school like the JRC because of it. No, kids, that's not what happened. Thank God my mom has worked in healthcare for so long, because what she did was have me assessed. Now, granted, at the time, I was indeed improperly diagnosed. Strangely, though enough, the medicine at the time did work. So, there's that. But you see where I'm going here, right? I was extremely self-abusive, very abusive to inanimate objects. And there was more than a few instances at school where I would square up because I was a special target for bullies, and it was Tuesday. And I'd had enough. Alright? My parents did not decide that the best thing to do with that very scary behavior, which more than once put my life at risk, their answer was to not send me off to a bad Disney acid trip from hell with doctors who seemed like they would have gotten well with Joseph Mengele in order to stop said behaviors. They were rational. They took me to a doctor. They had me assessed. Granted, it was the wrong diagnosis, but at least they took the sane steps that a lot of these parents should have. We have some privilege here because my mom did work in healthcare. She knew how to go about getting me into the service system at the time. Not everybody has that luxury. I use my story, particularly from when I was young, and that was really much out of my control, to bring up a point. Because there were constant full functional behavioral assessments being done, which is why I eventually, over time, as knowledge became expanded in regards to those of us who are autistic, I was able to get into the treatment programs that would work. In my teenage years, there was some very, very dark times, but by the time I was sitting about around 17, 18, because things were done in the order that they were supposed to be done, would you look at that? It isn't the wrist, Oh my gosh, what am I even saying here? It's not the Ritz, but it's a pretty awesome 2-bedroom, 2-bathroom apartment with wood floors in the kitchen. I got a nice window over there with a badass view, especially when it gets to storming pretty bad out here because I'm insane, and when it's tornadic weather I feel the really bad impulse to open all that up so I can watch. Decent furniture, cool rugs, and I mean, you all see the fireplace, right? Point is, in spite of how bad those behaviors were, how dangerous they were, and how many times I had literally put my life at risk, I still made it through because my circle of support and the people around me took me through the proper steps, got me the help that I very desperately needed so I could bring those dangerous behaviors down to a baseline and be able to function, work, provide for myself, control my own medical information, and all of that. How I'm here now. And not just that, because things were done properly. Not only was going through the service system something that has been successful, but I eventually became one of those folks that worked within that system. Okay? It's one of the advocates and voices out here, especially in regards to helping develop the pilot program that came to be transition services. Now, when I'm talking within this frame, what I mean by transition, just to clarify, is those kids who are getting to graduate from high school and the services and support set up to either further go into secondary education or the support to go into the workforce. I, as well as a group of others, helped pilot and craft that program now that has been running here for the last 10 to 15 years. I was able to do that because rational people understood that in spite of those very dangerous behaviors I was engaging in, I was still treated like a human being and not a science experiment from hell. Okay? As dangerous as those behaviors were, I can still come in front of you now and sit in front of this camera. I can go out and speak at conferences to strangers. I can create and help with programs and act in an advisory role in several different areas. I can still act as a mentor in spite of those dangerous behaviors because things were done right. Then bringing up how severe this kid is already has me understanding how they're going to play this. Because there have been the weird hiccups within me going to the service system of people who tried to paint me as a psychopath. I've been there. It's what they do when they want to use you as an experiment and try unhealthy shit with you. Thankfully, they didn't know who they were up against when it came to my mom. Because that is a sight that lives in my head rent free, and it's beautiful. The point is, when they do this, there's a reason behind it. They're either trying to hide shit, or they're using shock value so that you'll react with a knee-jerk emotional response instead of a rational one. They want you to have that knee-jerk emotional response because then you're not thinking logically in regards to what their treatment program actually does to kids, as opposed to what fantasy lie they're trying to sell you. Okay? And we're going to go ahead and close out on that for this evening, folks. We don't get very many views on this channel. The few we do tend to get removed from time to time. Please don't forget to hit the like button, hit subscribe. Don't forget to utilize the comments. I do appreciate your time this evening. Now, if you excuse me, there's some awesome, again, white sharp cheddar mac and cheese with bacon and I needs it. So good night, everyone. I hope you all have great dinners with your family. I'm going to also plot what I intend to do for New Year's. But bye, everyone. Have a great one.